Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you with us. I am excited about today's program. If you are a new listener, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the program. Just a few housekeeping items for you. Number one, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're taking in the show today. That way you can get the latest updates and the information. Number two, we ask you to stop by the rexandrewshow.com website. And here's the reason why. We tell stories and biographies, amazing people doing amazing things. But we don't have time to catch everything that they're doing. So we have profiles out there and links to their businesses, their social media, those types of things. And so you can connect and follow up and learn more about our guests because we just touched the tip of the iceberg. And then the last thing, hey, I'm not bashful. I'll beg. All right. And today I got a collar on, so I'm a well-dressed beggar. So I'll beg for stars. So if you think we're doing a good job, give us those 5 stars. It helps us with placement in the app stores. So we want to do what we do every show is we want to recognize listeners that are dialing in from all types of places. And we recognize that from looking at the stat sheets that we look at. And, this one is an interesting one. We want to welcome to those who are listening to us in Toulouse, France. So we've got some listeners over there in Toulouse, France that are regular listeners to the show. So welcome back. We've been really blessed. The program is listened to in 32 countries across 6 continents and more than 520 cities. So it's all about you, the audience that makes it, and then also our great guests. So thank you for coming along. There's a lot of choices out there for podcast entertainment and the way to spend your time. Okay, got a great guest today. I'm excited about this one. It's a great topic, and it's always good to have an expert come in and tell us about this, tell their story, and then what they're up to. And so I'm really excited. Our guest today is an author in progress, is what I'm going to say. He's working on a book, and so that's soon to be coming out. He's quite a serial entrepreneur and in one particular niche in real estate. And so he teaches people and he does a lot of coaching, helps people identify and buy their first investment properties. And he's just completely engaged in all that. He has some online courses. So he's a course creator. So he's taken up his knowledge and his expertise and put it online so people can actually learn and grow from his programs. So I'd like to welcome to our show this afternoon, coming in to us, and we'll tell you where he's at in the world here, Riley Oickle. Riley, how are you today?
Doing well, Rex. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. So what part of the corner of the world? Tell us where you're at today.
The corner of the world, I guess. I'm in Toronto, so Toronto, Canada.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
How's summer in Toronto these days?
How was summer? It was raining today. So, it was raining today, but overall, the humidity's been pretty high right now, but the weather's been nice. Yeah, we're around 30 to 35 degrees for the majority of July here, going on August.
Nice. Well, Riley, as you know, the show is about your story. Success doesn't fall out of the sky, as I like to say. So we want to go back and understand how'd you get there, okay? Now, don't worry about writing any of these questions down because I fire them off. I've been doing this. And so we want to go back in time and learn where were you born, okay? Also, too, where were you raised? Because if you move around a lot, that impacts people in lots of ways. I actually had a guest on the show, Ellie Soja, who moved 63 times by the time she was 15. So quite an influence to be the daughter of an international con man. We want to know about your family. So do you have siblings? And if you do have siblings, did any of them survive your harassment? We want to know about your parental influence. Now, parental influence is really important. After interviewing several hundred people in my podcast and also radio career, I found that there's kind of 3 different buckets that I put the parental experience in. Number one is like the launchpad parents, totally supportive. They're, pushing kids along, helping them, sometimes even dragging them to their successes. The second one is a middle bucket. That middle bucket is about the parents who absolutely love their kids, but they were so busy eking out a living or were so buried into a career that they weren't quite as engaged as a lot of kids would prefer. Then the last bucket I call the struggle bucket, which is a very difficult bucket, but it motivates a lot of people. This is where kids could be growing up in an environment where there is abuse or addiction or, dysfunction, all kinds of stuff like that. And it basically motivates the kids to go off into, hey, I'm going to be something completely different than, what I am experiencing there. Then we want to learn a little bit about your education, key people in your lives that made some differences, and then pivot points. And then we'll roll up to today, and you can tell us about the things that you're doing and how you're helping other people. When I select guests, I'm always looking for people doing good things. And after reading your bio, it looks like you're doing some amazing things. So we want to share that. So if you could, Riley, go back and tell us, where were you born?
Sure. Yeah, so I was born in a very small rural community in Nova Scotia. So on kind of the east coast there of Canada. So yeah, born there. Growing up, we had about 4 acres of land, and a lot of that's just field. So I'd be playing soccer on the field, and playing baseball and just all that sorts of thing. And then I ended up starting to run track in kind of like junior high and around like grade 5, grade 6, and got pretty competitive by university. That kind of led me to a scholarship at Western University in Ontario, which is what kind of brought me to Ontario.
Okay. So athletics played a big role in your life, it sounds like.
They did, yeah. When I was growing up, I loved sports. I played baseball, I ran track, and then I played soccer as well. But I would say that my favorite two were baseball and track, for sure.
Okay. So do you have siblings?
I do not have siblings. No, I was an only child.
Only child. Okay. So tell us about your parents. What did your parents do for a living as you were growing up?
Of course, yeah. My mom is a secretary, or is still a secretary, and was as well when I was growing up, for an electrical company.
Okay.
And then my dad actually started a water conditioning business, and had been doing it. Well, he's been doing it now for over 25 years.
Wow.
So self-employed, one-man show, and does a really great job at it. And he basically goes in. He'll do reconditioned machines and water conditioners for people, because when you live in a rural community, it isn't city water. It's
right.
Your own drilled well and whatnot. So
yeah. So how would you describe your youth growing up, your experience at home? You didn't have any siblings, so what did the home life look like for you?
What's interesting, Rex? I looking back, and I've done this a couple times. I've kind of dissected the way in which my parents had parented me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really difficult to poke holes. Like, I'm very, very grateful in like how they raised me. There's certainly a balance, and I've seen this with some of my friends as well. People I've known that have been parented in different ways, where like the leash was a little bit too short, and then they revolted after or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they found that sweet spot with like just giving me enough room for autonomy and for freedom, which was great. So, I'd say I was parented quite well, looking back.
Great. Well, there's nothing wrong with having launch and type parents and supportive and the great environments, because that gives kids a great start. So, was there anything else that you were interested in outside of sports that you did as a kid in your formative years?
Again, being in the middle of nowhere in the rural community in Nova Scotia, we played in the woods. Like we had ATVs, like 4-wheelers,
nice.
Snowmobiles in the winter. So you kind of drive the all-terrain vehicles, and we'd make forts, like tree forts and stuff. So we were always outside. I had a Wii. I think that was my only called PlayStation or whatever, like gaming device. I had a Wii from Nintendo. And I think I didn't get that until I was 16, and I barely even played on it. So I wasn't inside playing video games really at all. I was really outside quite a bit.
Yeah, it's similar to the way I was raised. And it's, I did not even have video games until I was late into high school. So, and they were archaic and basically prehistoric compared to today's videos and stuff. So were you a good student?
I was mediocre at best. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did school bore you a little bit, or were you just, didn't like teachers, or what, lazy in the classroom? Just give me a little bit of background behind your mediocre at best.
Yeah. Like I would say I'd summarize it as like getting B's. I get a lot of B's.
Okay.
If I got a C, I was upset.
Okay.
And if I got an A, fantastic. But I was shooting for B's.
Okay.
And so, I kind of looked at the academics being important,
Mm-hmm.
and me getting like 80% was good enough for me.
Right.
And then I also wanted to make sure I was able to spend my other time like learning and developing, like, and I didn't know this back then and I was doing it. I didn't do it intentionally, but like socializing and like learning street smarts. So I did spend a lot of time with friends and socializing and playing sports, of course, because looking back now, I'm like, I actually wish I would have put more time and energy into those elements as well, because that's kind of what I believe has led to a lot of my success now in life and in my career is what I got out of sports and socializing.
Okay, so, fantastic.
Yeah.
So setting parents aside, was there someone, at least one, someone from your youth or formative years that you look back and go, wow, this person really made an impact on my life?
Yeah, I would say that the first coach that I had made the biggest impact other than my parents.
Okay.
And she was my track coach. I was lucky enough to actually have the Team Canada track coach live in my kind of rural community there. So she was really the one that kind of fostered a great work ethic and just like making sacrifices and going all in on something and full immersion. And that's really, I think, again, kind of what led to my business success later in life. But she definitely had the biggest impact on me.
Okay. That's always good. I always ask that question. I don't let people know that it's coming. I like that one to come out of left field. So tell me a little bit about after high school, what was your next pivot? Did you go off to university? Did you just go to work? Tell me a little bit about that.
After high school, I went to Europe for the summer. So it was like the 2 months of the summer I went to Europe. And we backpacked Europe as like 18-year-olds.
Nice.
So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that's really what opened up my eyes to like just the craziness of the world. You know, I had my eyes closed for a lot of my life into like what is out there, what does Europe look like, and just kind of seeing the diversity of people, also the diversity of like career options and what people do for work. And spending 2 months in Europe actually opened up my eyes to a lot of those opportunities. And then right after the packing Europe trip, I ended up going to university after that.
Okay. So what did you study in university?
I studied kinesiology. Yeah.
Cool.
So it was a health science course. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So after you got done at the university level, what was your next stop? Did you get into real estate right away? Did you find something else? Because you're studying kinesiology. That's not what you're doing today, obviously.
Yeah. No, like looking back, it's pretty funny actually at how I made the decision of what to take at university. I had read the description of the different programs, and you're like 17 going on to university, and you're like, well, which of these kind of represent my identity and who I identify myself as? And I read the kinesiology description. It said athleticism. I just remember that one word, athleticism, and I'm like, oh, I'm an athlete. Naturally, that's what I'm going to go and study. Little did I know that I wouldn't enjoy learning about the 300 bones or 400 bones. I don't even know how many bones there are, for God's sake, but how many bones there are in the body, or how many muscles or ligaments and what they all are. So anyway, I took kinesiology, not using it now, but after year one, I realized how much I'd be in debt after university if I didn't actually make a big dent in that debt because of interest and whatnot. And so, I paid for my education start to finish through running a whole maintenance company. So that was kind of the next step after university there. It was that really during university, around year two, I started knocking on houses in the city where my university was. And I offered them window cleaning services and eave cleaning services, pressure washing, and just, I did a lot of that myself for the first little while. And then I ended up hiring students from the university to help me out because we got pretty busy. So I had my very first set of employees. I had 2 employees in my second year of university. So I hired those guys. They worked with me all summer long. They were great. And they were from the football team. So they were really hard going, working guys. And then we actually grew it to 12 students in the second year and 16 in the third. And we're hitting 6 figures a year. And the business is still operating today. It's 5 or 6 years later. It's pretty independent now. I'm just kind of like the late founder.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first business I officially ran that hit 6 figures, and my first business as well that I had employees for.
Fantastic. So when did you get into real estate?
Yeah. And then I guess around the age of, it was probably 2021, when I decided to start up a geothermal company.
Okay.
And I needed a hydraulic drill that cost 1.5 million for that company. I didn't have 1.5 million at that early age. And so I walked into the bank asking for a loan, to which I was met with them saying, "Hey, what do you have for assets?" And I had like a $2,000 vehicle as my only asset. So they declined my application for a loan. And so I left out of there pretty frustrated. And then I started researching assets, which kind of led me on the path of real estate and what buying income properties could kind of do for me in my life. And so it was around 2021 when I really started to devote like a lot of my time into learning about what it takes to run this type of business. So I bought my first property within a year after that.
Okay, fantastic. So how long ago was that?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. Fantastic. So what made you decide to go after investment type properties instead of just like, buying a house and flipping things? What made you decide to go that route?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really broke down like the two categories for my education anyway, and what I've been taught from my mentors and coaches as well, into you have like strategies when you're investing in real estate that are more active income, and then strategies that are more wealth creation or passive.
Right.
And so your active income would be like flipping or wholesaling. Like there are strategies in which you're going to do it in 2, 3, 4 months, and you're going to make quick money. But when people get really rich in real estate and they make a lot of money, it's from holding on to these assets for 10, 20, 30 years. Because when things appreciate year over year over year and it compounds upon the previous year, that's where people get really rich. And so that's why I've decided to hold on to real estate for a long time. I'm still 25. So, my goal is to hold on to my portfolio that I currently have until I'm at least 40, before I start selling things off, depending on how the market reacts. But, yeah, like I'm kind of looking at the long-term play right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So how many properties have you gotten, or have you been involved with so far over the last 4 years?
Yeah, so we're up to 12 properties right now.
Fantastic. Okay. Is there a particular perfect fit for you? Is what you're looking for? Do you have a sweet spot that you're looking for?
That's a good question. I don't think that there is a sweet spot. I think when you're looking at designing a portfolio for like the longevity, the sustainability, you have to think about the different kind of elements in which makes a good portfolio. One is going to be your cash flow. And then how you get cash flow, for me anyway, like my big cash cows in my portfolio are my Airbnb properties, where I rent them on Airbnb or VRBO, and they're short-term rental properties. And so, they make really, really great cash flow. So we have a number of those.
Okay.
And then but that's again for cash flow. For the equity and the appreciation, the bigger the building, the more expensive, the better. The more tenants in the building that are paying down the mortgage, the better. It's more kind of mice on the wheel, so to say, right? Running and making that money for you. So we're looking at buying apartment buildings as more of like the long-term wealth creation, but the Airbnbs are what keeps our kind of portfolio cash flowing really nicely for the more active, like the money that comes in our pocket this month versus like 20 years from now.
Right. Now, are you managing and doing all the maintenance on those through your own company, or do you sub that out, or how's that look?
Yeah, I did start up a property management company. So they do all the, like we basically do it all in-house. We do all the management in-house.
Okay. Yeah. Makes a big difference when you're doing that, because you're going to treat things differently than if you're just third party doing property maintenance, because
exactly
they have a different approach, because when it's your nickel, you pay a little bit more attention to it, right?
Yeah, no, that's it. I just couldn't find a company that kind of treated the portfolio the way that I wanted to be treated. So I just decided to use my own systems and hire people and put them on the payroll. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, do you do properties primarily in Canada? Do you reach out to the States, other countries? What's your portfolio look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now it's all in Ontario.
Okay.
And we are looking to branch off into Tennessee and Texas very soon.
Oh, wow.
So educating ourselves on those markets for short-term rentals.
Yeah, the hot markets down in those places, really hot markets. Fantastic. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the book you're working on.
Yeah, of course. So I did put together a program here in the last couple of years that helps people to buy their first income property. So it's an 8-week program, and I'm able to kind of give them pre-recorded lectures. What I realized though is I might be able to just condense all of that education and all the learnings into a book as well. So I'm making a complimentary book that is basically just spudding off of the program, let's say. So all the content that I put into the program, into the back end in about 50 hours is also going to be condensed into a book. And that's around 200 to 300 pages long.
Fantastic. When do you expect to have that finished?
The book is kind of in the publishing and editing phase right now, and it should be out by the end of the year.
End of the year.
By
Fantastic.
December. Yeah.
So was that a difficult task to go off and write the book?
It's been a lot of time, not going to lie, a good amount of time. And it's a big undertaking. It takes a lot of focus. Luckily though, we had already done a lot of that fact finding and the structuring. The brainstorming had already been done for the back end portal. And now it's just a kind of a matter of like putting it into a book form, written form versus right. Beforehand, it was just me recording like a lecture live, right. Speaking it. So now it's going to be putting it into the written form.
Now, Riley, do you have a spot where you kind of hub everything online so people can find you? So I know you've got your courses, your books coming up. What's your website that people can find you on?
Yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone. They can reach out on the website there that we have. It's just my first and last name.com. So RileyOickle.com. Okay. And you can schedule a call there if you'd like.
Fantastic. Spell out the Oickle for us because that's a unique last name, just like mine.
Sure. So Oickle is Oickle.
Fantastic. So what's next? After the book, what do you have an aspiration on the horizon after that?
After the book, I think there's always a few things that are in the mix that we're working on. The biggest project that we're probably excited for in 2022 is we just bought 100 acres of land in Northern Ontario, and we bought a compact tractor. So we're clearing a few acres of land, and we're doing the land severance there, and we're going to do prefabricated homes that are environmentally friendly and sustainable. And it's going to be kind of like this off-grid project where all of them are off the grid, and you can rent them on Airbnb. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. But yeah.
That's good. So what's the biggest mistake people make when they're looking at investment properties?
Biggest mistake, not doing their homework. I really do put people into 3 different categories. They either don't know what they don't know, they know what they don't know, or they know what they know. Yeah. And the people that I talk with on the phone that reach out and they want coaching or help, and they identify themselves to be in the know what they know category, but really through asking them a few questions, I realize they're in the don't know what they don't know category. That's where people are like not aware of their blind spots. At least when you're in the know what you don't know, right. It's like, hey, I know what I don't know about the BRRRR strategy. But if you didn't know what the BRRRR strategy is to start with, you didn't even hear of it, then it's in the don't know what you don't know. Right. So, at least it's humbling when you're in the know what you don't know. Right. But when you really don't know anything, when your ignorance is bliss, when you're in that state, it's really, really difficult to start the learning curve. And I find people just, they know a friend that had done this, that bought a property once, or they've been watching HGTV and watched a few people do flips. They're like, how hard can this be? And they go out and they buy a property without any analysis expertise, without knowing how to re-rent units, without knowing how to find really good contractors that won't screw them over. And they for lack of better term, they wipe out, they fall face first, and they lose a ton of money. Real estate's great compared to stocks because you can control the asset, you can control how it makes you money. But when you don't know how to properly pull the strings and control the asset, it can also lose a lot of your money quickly. So just make sure that you do your homework, that you do your research, and you understand how the machine works before you try to run it.
Yeah, when people are running around and they don't even know what they don't know, the old phrase that I was always shared back from a mentor of mine way back in the day, Tom Hopkins, he would call them an unconscious incompetent. They don't even know what they don't know. So too many people operate in, the challenge with real estate is they're big transactions as far as dollar value. And if you make a mistake, you can really make a mistake, And so being an unconscious incompetent can get you in trouble pretty quickly if you make the wrong purchase. And I think a lot of times too, in some of the real estate investors that I've talked to, a lot of it has to do with your personality. What types of properties do you like to work with? And so was there a particular thing other than the long-term investment that you like in the multi-tenant?
Yeah, the one thing is you kind of have to think of it in terms of like there's multiple pillars holding up the building.
Mm-hmm.
Each unit would be a pillar. So if one pillar were to break on a 10-unit building and you have 10 pillars, the building can still withstand a storm. You know, it's still
Right.
sustainable. But when you have a single family home and that tenant moves out and you don't have anyone in there paying down your mortgage or paying for your expenses, the business kind of collapses quite easily. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the advantage of having multiple tenants in a building is if there's a vacancy, you know, the bills are still paid for.
Yeah, fantastic. So this is a question I ask all my guests. It's something that I do. It's a little bit of a left-handed question. Comes up there. You know, in the Western cultures, we have this idea of a bucket list, you know, things we're going to do before our time is done. Well, there's always an opposite of a bucket list. There's things that we don't want to be involved with. Now that list rhymes with bucket and starts with an F, but we have a clean show here. So it's the F-it list, okay? Now, you've done some interesting things. You've taken some risks with assets, but you've making calculated risks. So that tells us a little bit about you. We've learned that you're an athlete. So we learned a little bit about that. But what might be an item or two that would be on your F-it list? Now, while you're thinking about that, I'll give you a couple examples. I won't ever have a collection of pet snakes. That's just, I'm not interested. I'm not going to eat any more sardines or caviar. Okay, not going to do those. Or monkey brains, had some of that. And I won't ever do a Lakota sweat lodge again. That one was really interesting. Too much heat, too much humidity, too much drumming, too much chanting, and a slice of nudity. I have no interest in doing that again. So what might be an item or two that's on Riley's F-it list?
Yeah. I hate to just talk about business more, but like genuinely, it's just never running a business that doesn't make me fulfilled or happy. You know,
Yeah.
just doing it for the dollar sign.
Yeah.
Just doing it for like, you know, my own enjoyment, my own passion. Helping people is a big thing. So, you know, I've ran businesses in the past that have been purely based on wanting to make money, and they've all failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's because I just had the perspective of wanting to make money with them,
Right.
while actually not enjoying what I was doing. So that would be on my F-it list for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been good to have you on, and I know that people will benefit from your program, so they just need to go to your website. So spell out the last name again. So it's
Okay.
Riley.
Yeah.
Yep.
Riley, and then the last name is Oickle. You spell it Oickle.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Riley, thanks for coming on. And when you get your book out at the end of the year, we'll have you back on, and we can talk about your book and you know, the important parts of that. So it'll be interesting to get you back on the air and talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Rex. Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Well, until next time, folks, we'll call this one an episode. We're thankful for everybody who's tuned in and listened today. Please stop by Riley's website, but also to stop by the rexandrewshow.com website, because you'll have his profile and his connection information there, and then links to his businesses and his courses and stuff there too. Because you know, it's great when professionals like Riley provide their expertise and make it so people can do it on their self-pace. So glad to have that. So until next time, we will say the things that we say at the end of every episode. Be safe, but be bold, and make it a great day.